Mary Edwards Walker was born in 1832 in Oswego, New York, to Alva and Vesta Walker, parents who were ahead of their time in many respects. Unlike most families of that era, the Walkers insisted on giving their daughter an education that rivaled any son's. Mary grew up in an environment where intellectual discussion was encouraged, and where the binding corsets and long dresses of the day were optional. By the age of 23, Mary had graduated from Syracuse Medical College, one of the few women of her time to hold a medical degree. She set up a practice, but patients were hesitant to visit a female doctor. Regardless, Mary persevered, for she knew her journey had only just begun. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, young men from all over the country were called to enlist, but Mary's application was turned down because of her gender. With the absence of formal acceptance into the military, Mary took on the only role permitted to women, that of a nurse. However, for someone who had fought to become a surgeon, nursing felt like an unsatisfying compromise. In 1862, after months of advocacy and armed with glowing letters of recommendation from the surgeons she had assisted, Mary's determination bore fruit. She was allowed to serve as a contract surgeon for the Union Army. Although she didn't have a formal rank, she was more than a civilian, she was a surgeon entrusted with lives. Mary was not one to stay confined to the tented hospitals behind battle lines. Instead, she ventured to the forefront, where she knew she was needed most. On more than one occasion, her courageous spirit saw her crossing enemy lines to administer aid to civilians trapped in the conflict. During her service, she was captured by Confederate troops and held as a prisoner of war for 4 months. During her imprisonment, she provided medical care to fellow inmates, never letting her spirits or her commitment waver. In 1865, President Andrew Johnson awarded her the Medal of Honor for her invaluable service and devotion to duty. However, in 1917, a government review board revoked her medal, along with those of over 900 others. Despite the official action, Mary refused to return her medal and wore it every day, a symbol of her unyielding defiance. The twilight years, more than just a doctor. As she aged, Mary's spirit remained untouched by time. She became an author, penning several books and essays advocating for women's rights, including the right to vote and the right to wear comfortable clothing free from the constraints of corsets and skirts. She toured the country, lecturing on everything from suffrage to her own experiences in the war. Dressed in trousers and a top hat, she was as much a visual representation of her ideologies as she was a vocal one. Many saw her as eccentric, but for Mary, it was always about fighting for what she believed in. Restoring the honor. Mary Edwards Walker passed away in 1919, but her legacy lived on. In 1977, 6 decades after her death, President Jimmy Carter reinstated her Medal of Honor, forever cementing her place as a true American hero. In a world where her contributions could have been easily forgotten, obscured by the fog of time and bias, Mary Edwards Walker remains an indomitable symbol of what one person can achieve against all odds. Whether it was the operating room or the battlefields, whether it was through her pen or her voice, she broke barriers and defied conventions. Her life, a saga of courage, resilience, and unyielding principle, speaks to each one of us, reminding us that societal norms are but boundaries waiting to be broken. Mary Edwards Walker was not just a pioneer in medicine or the military, she was a pioneer for humanity, fighting for what she knew was right. And in doing so, she changed the course of history,